There are many paths to make it to the majors, and today's guest forged his own after a multi-sport career at Hopewell Valley Central High School. Now in his seventh year in the bigs, AJ Cassavell covers the most exciting team in baseball, the San Diego Padres, for MLB.com. We'll talk baseball, some life on the West Coast, and much more with AJ next on this episode of the Jersey Baseball Show. The Jersey Baseball Show is sponsored by Edward Lesky Company, general contractors for more than 70 years, 908-686-7272, edwardlesky.com. The Edward Lesky Company, work safe, work smart, work tomorrow. AJ, welcome to the show. Greetings from back home in the East Coast here. Tell us a little bit about what's going through, what you're doing right now.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's pretty cool. We're so basically, like, as with everyone's world, this year's been kind of like thrown on its head the last year and a half, and so I'm covering the Padres essentially, more or less, this exciting, fun, young, winning team. I'm covering them essentially through Zoom, but I'm at all the home games, and I'm covering them for MLB.com. So I'm writing 2 to 3 stories a day on what's going on, one after the game, and then usually one like feature-y type thing before the game. And so there's a lot to write about with this team. I've done it for, I believe this is my 6th or 7th year on the beat. And like there were years where I had nothing. I had to like really scrape and claw to find something to write about.
Couldn't wait for October, right?
Yeah, and now now there's like too many things, and I have to make some judgment calls as to like what I'm not writing about that day, which story will not be the most interesting. So it's a change, but it's a lot of fun. The Padres are a fun team, and
great personalities, so many different personalities too, right?
Yeah, that's to me. I mean, they can win 95, 100 games. To me, what I'm most excited about this team is that they have like pretty much everyone on the team, or pretty much every like main contributor, is an interesting, outgoing, kind of like there's some depth to the personality too, and so like there's a lot to cover, I think, as a result of that. And I'd prefer that to a 9,500 win team any day, but this team might also be that.
Yeah, so you get both here this year. It looks like, at least it's a possibility, right? So tell us about your story, because one of the things that I like to do each week is, obviously bring somebody on here. This is kind of a New Jersey. It's got a New Jersey focus to it. Obviously, you're on the West Coast, but grew up in Central Jersey. Played multiple sports at Hopewell. Graduated, I think, 2007, if I recall.
Yep.
Where did this path come from? How did you know you wanted to be in baseball? And how did you, get into writing eventually through MLB.com and covering the majors?
Yeah, so I mean, it's something I guess the cliche would be that it's something I've always wanted to do. Like I grew up wanting to write about baseball, and I grew up wanting to be involved in baseball. I played football and basketball in high school too, but baseball was always my like passion. It was always the sport I loved the most, and so. Yeah, it's something I always want to do. Actually, I grew up reading every day, reading you in the Trenton Times, reading the Star Ledger, reading the New York Times, and then I used to get in trouble during Spanish class because I'd be reading the paper in the middle of class, and I'd get it taken away.
Now you know what clip I'm going to short for Twitter is the little here.
No, so that happened fairly regularly. I vividly remember it happening in Spanish class most often, but that's honestly something I should have been probably paying more attention to, because
I was going to say, it turns out that was some relevant career education that you missed out on, I think.
Yeah. So I guess it might have been better served for me to be reading the paper in some other classes. But anyway,
math, right?
So then I graduated, and like with that as my goal, I went to Penn State and I worked for the Daily Collegian there. And then I got hired. I got for an MLB.com internship. Back then they had internships with all 30 teams. I was the intern for the Dodgers in LA, and so I drove across the country in 2011 with full designs on after my internship was over, just
going back
to New Jersey, and then figuring out what was next. But at the end of that internship, I got a pretty good indication that that come the following February, they might be looking to hire like part-timers for MLB.com, which could lead to something more full-time. And so this was 2011. And so I had family in San Diego and essentially drove all my stuff down there, put it in my cousin's garage, flew back east, spent a couple months back east looking for jobs, but I always had kind of this inkling that they would rehire me. And then sure enough, in February, they hired me they hired me for like their national desk, like to just write short stories on breaking news. And then I also worked overnight shifts 2 nights a week, which were brutal, but it was my way of, because I was working those overnight shifts, they essentially said, well, if you're going to be working these, they're 2 to 10 East Coast or they're 11 to 7 West Coast. You can live we can live wherever you want. If you're doing these, you can work remotely. It just has to be in a city with a Major League Baseball team so that you can help our beat guy cover when he needs time off. And so I ended up picking San Diego because they essentially gave me more or less an option. And then a few years later, the beat job came open, and that's where I am now.
So it's an MLB.com job. So it's an advanced media. It's not the typical newspaper, which is kind of dead anyway. But that's really more the traditional old school path, to getting that position, right? You kind of work your way up through the ranks, with the Cubs. So that's pretty cool, because you see so many people just kind of a non-traditional way. But what did you learn from that? Was it smooth all the way? Were there some ups and downs as far as getting that position? Because you're, as hard as it is to make the majors, there are a lot fewer writing jobs than there are playing jobs.
Sure. Yeah. Looking back, it all kind of sounds so smooth. It's like I got the internship, and then I got hired part-time, and then I started working the overnight production shifts, and then the beat came open and I got it. And it like all seems very kind of like the path was straightforward, but like, I didn't really necessarily know when a beat job would become available for me. So I was prepared to move to any city if they had offered it to be in any city. And so then there were times where I was hopeful of maybe going anywhere else, or like of getting a different job, and with MLB.com, like covering a different team, and that never materialized. And I think probably the thing that I like learned the most, or like what I look back on it and like say like, man, that was tough in retrospect, was like the overnight production shifts. Like to get to, like, if you want to get to, like, I love my job. It's cool, and it's exactly what I want to be doing. And it's there's still challenges, but I love my job. But in order to get there, like, I'd essentially give up, those were mostly weekends. So I'd essentially give up my Friday and Saturday nights to work from 11 to 7. And there were times where those were just brutal. And I did that for 2.5 years. And it wasn't every Friday and Saturday night. I think they gave me some time to spend to do whatever, and someone else filled in for me. But it's, I guess it just takes like the real commitment and the real desire to want to get to where you are,
Yeah, no, I love that personally, because that was, again, I was writing for 10 years before I got my first, hey, you're going to start covering the Phillies a little bit now. And there were all sorts of things in between there. And, just to see, I think it gives you a better appreciation for the, not just for your job, but also the jobs of, it's not like you hit send and then bam, it's up on the, on your site. It just gives you more of an appreciation for your, the editing staff. It gives you more of an appreciation for the, for the desk, and, kind of respect to their schedule too. And I think that's something that's really cool.
Yeah, that's probably, I would say, like, one of my strengths on this job right now is because I spent time editing and I spent time producing stories, and I also spent time reporting. Like, my background was fairly even in both. And like, if you have that, and you can kind of understand what your editors are working with and what the burden is, and the communication is just a lot easier that way. And so I like in 2012, I wanted a beat and I thought I could handle it. And I'm sure maybe I could have, but in retrospect, like, the things I learned in those 5 years in between, they significantly helped me get to where I am.
My guess is there's some things you could have handled and some things that would have been just like, what is this? So when was your first, like, I made it, I'm here moment, coming in the majors? Because you kind of didn't have the while some of your kind of path was traditional, was kind of working your way up, there wasn't like, I'm covering high schools, I'm covering the minors. It's like, boom, I'm early 20s, I'm covering the majors, somehow. What was your first kind of like, what was your mindset going into that job, and B, what was your first like, wow, I'm in the majors now?
Well, so the first one I would say probably happened before I got the beat. I helped cover the 2014 World Series, which I didn't cover any of the games in Kansas City, but I covered the 3 games in San Francisco. And so you guys probably remember that as the Bumgarner World Series. Well, I saw him pitch in Game 5 there, but that was just like, that was pretty incredible for me, because I remember going into the Royals clubhouse afterward and asking them about Bumgarner, and a couple of them were like, well, hey, we don't have to face him again. And then he came out of the bullpen in Game 7 and pitched 5 innings. So
later, right?
that was the first, like, all right, like I'm making it. Like, they asked me to cover this, like I'm probably going somewhere. And then I think I'd probably say, like, the way we do it at MLB.com is, so there's 30 beat writers for every team. And so when the season's over, you get to, like, I'm not necessarily covering Padres in October if the Padres aren't in the playoffs. So for those first couple of years when they were struggling, I covered Dodgers. I think it was Dodgers Nationals that October, and it was just an outstanding series. And like, I got to fly back and forth across the country. It went 5 games. Clayton Kershaw came out of the bullpen in Game 5 to lock it down. I think that was that year. I think that was 2016. But that was the first time I got to like bounce back and forth with a playoff series. And then it was I guess I covered Dodgers Cubs the following year. The Cubs beat the Dodgers and went to their first World Series in however many years. That in 2016, but in 2017 I got to cover Dodgers Cubs in the LCS. And like that, I covering the Padres was outstanding, and I loved it from the start. But like, let's face it, like, a lot of my work got overlooked because the Padres were a 66 win team, and so covering playoff baseball and bouncing across the country to cover like
from LA
real
to Chicago too. I mean, those are
crazy,
it's awesome cities,
Yeah, and it was awesome, and I think that was when it was kind of like, all right, like this is here we go, like this is big time. And now I think the cool thing is, like, I saw like those baseball crazed cities, and I kind of always thought that San Diego would have that, but the team was just, I mean, it was a sub 500 team for 9 straight years. And then the Padres got good. And now I'm seeing that here, and it's a really, really cool baseball town.
Yeah. No, you ever just, I mean, you growing up in Central Jersey, just ever like, San Diego's nice, I'm not moving back?
Yeah, I mean, I honest to God, I never like thought about living in California while I was growing up in Central Jersey. So I just like, I think the reason I got the Dodgers internship, and I may have gotten it anyway, was like, we had to kind of like rank which cities we would be interested in covering. And I put LA, Anaheim, San Diego, because I think I got the internship in like mid-January at Penn State when there's like freezing rain falling down outside. And so I was like, you know what, if I'm going to intern somewhere, maybe I'll make it Southern California. And then
my list
10
is
years
the exact
later,
same as average temperature in February, right?
Yeah.
So, but it worked out better. And what's as a converted West Coaster, what's your favorite, thing about living out west that, obviously the weather's fantastic. So we'll take that off the table. I mean, I would say, yeah, I'll take that weather over here any day.
Yeah.
But beyond that, what's the thing that you have grown to like most, maybe appreciate most, just was different than you thought, or just, what's living on the West Coast like?
Well, yeah. So I think the thing that I've grown to maybe appreciate the most, as far as like something I didn't realize, like, I obviously, like, growing up in New Jersey, I have my idea of like what food I love, and like Italian food, pizza, bagels, like, you're not going to get any of that out here. And so when I first moved out here, I was kind of bummed about how crappy all the food was. Like, it wasn't up to my standard. And then
the pizza capital of the world out here. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And so then I moved to, then I like spent some time here and started realizing, well, yeah, like there's no pizza place like Vito's down the road, or there's no, like, I can't get bagel like Pennington Bagel, but like you know what I can get? I can get fish tacos that are incredible, and I can get Mexican food that's great, and seafood that's great. So I think I've come to like really, really appreciate the food out here as like very different. So when I go home, when I go back to New Jersey, like I make sure I get all that stuff in. But I've come to appreciate this food as good, just very, very different
Just
from what I grew up
very
with.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
In-N-Out Burger, yes or no?
Strong yes. Big
Okay.
fan.
I feel like that's another one of those, like, you either love or, and most love, but just as much. There's no in between, right?
Well, I almost never get it because like I try to avoid getting it as often as possible. Like, but the one time I allow myself to get it is on the drive home from, like, if I cover a Padres Dodgers series in LA, like those are usually exhausting just because Padres Dodgers series are exhausting. Like they're really, really good baseball games, and there's a measure of rivalry. And so that on the drive down I-5, I stop and get In-N-Out Burger, and that's pretty much the only time I have it. But yeah, big fan.
Now you were a Yankees fan or Phillies fan growing up?
I was a Yankee fan growing up. I mean, I was a huge baseball fan just regardless. So did Yankee games and Philly games the same. Went to a lot of Trenton Thunder games too. And so, yeah, just I was a Yankee fan growing up. I had season tickets in the bleacher creature. Like we had a Sunday game package, so we'd go out there. And then when they switched stadiums, I think I was already in college, and so I spent like a good chunk of my Sundays when I wasn't playing baseball just going up to the Bronx and sitting in the bleachers.
So one of the either, again, great or negative things about living out here is those, the Phillies or the Yankees would go out west, play the Mariners, Padres, whatever, and you got these 10 o'clock starts and you're up for one. No more of that for you, huh? There's no more night games.
It's pretty spectacular. Like everyone back east, like you're used to like kind of watching sports the way you watch them. Tell you what, if you move everything 3 hours up, it's outstanding. Like you get the night games, you're never up past 11 o'clock unless it's some wild and crazy game. Usually it's done at 10. But B, like football Sundays are great. Like I know it sounds weird, but 10 a.m. waking up, rolling out of bed, 10 a.m. football is outstanding.
My first experience with that was, just finished, graduated from Northwestern. 6 months later, the big Rose Bowl season, 1995, where
nice.
out there January 1st, 96. My first trip and extended time out in Pasadena, going to the Rose Bowl. And all of a sudden, football Sundays started at 9 o'clock. It's it's breakfast. It's no night games. It's fantastic, and it's a different lifestyle.
Yeah. It very much the sports calendar very much fits the different lifestyle too.
Yeah, I was going to say one might be the cause of the other in some ways. It's so. You see younger writers now, or people maybe ask you for advice. How does this happen, and how do you get this as a career? I mean, people read you in Spanish class now, although it's probably tougher to. I guess you got your iPhone. You go. What?
Yeah, it's probably easier than ever to read. About baseball during Spanish class.
Yeah, now. There is no big newspaper to unfold at the desk anymore. What do you tell them? What can what help you on this path? People who's, realize at age 17, they can't hit a curveball, but still want to stay in the game. What were some things that help you along the way?
Yeah. So I think, well, first of all, I could hit a curveball. It was the fastball velocity I had trouble with. But no, I think the biggest thing is just that, like, you have to be, like, you have to really, really, really want it. It's not, it can't be like, oh, I want to be a baseball writer. Well, there's a lot of people who want to be baseball writers. There's a lot of people who want to do that. And like, you have to get some lucky breaks along the way. I'm not without like my share of lucky breaks, but like, you have to be willing to sacrifice weekend overnights for a few years to get to where you want to be. You have to be willing to kind of give up your summer week. Like I love my job and would never complain about the grind of the schedule. I really, really try hard not to, but I don't get summer weekends. And like, those are really, really important to a lot of people. And if they are, then fantastic, but this job kind of isn't for you. So I would say you just kind of have to be willing. Like, it's a little cliche, but you have to really, really, really love the game. And then beyond that, you have to be like, you can't just love it. You have to be willing to put in the work to get to where you are. I think that's probably I mean, that's the biggest key.
Is that if there's something that the average person watching at home maybe doesn't understand about your job, is it that? I mean, is it just the amount of work that goes into it? Because, young AJ, young Mike certainly was guilty of it. Might think, hey, this is pretty cool. These people are going to the games, they're writing a little story about it, they're done, and they don't see everything else that goes into it. You see the glamour, but you don't see the hard work. Is that probably what most people don't get?
I think so. And I give those people a pass because like they're only concerned about what they're reading. They're not necessarily concerned about the work that goes into it. But like it's especially in a normal time, like flying from city to city, awesome, love it. It's a grind, and it makes it like if I show up in Colorado at 11:30 on a Monday morning ahead of a 4-game series against the Rockies, I probably got up and got on an early flight, and I'm probably pretty tired. And now I have to go to the ballpark and cover a game that night. And it's awesome.
And you don't have your own traveling secretary checking in, if I recall.
Correct. Yeah. So I'm booking all these flights, and that's a part of it too. And so it's really cool, but it's the thing I think people don't realize is the grind behind it all. So it's it's not just, and it like you said, it's not just you show up, you watch a game, you write a story about it. I mean, there's like relationships to build, and there's people to meet, there's people to get to know, and like you have to kind of build up your own reputation among the team, and like that is probably the most important part of the job, because without that, you're not gonna get the meat of the story. You're gonna miss out on some things that I think you're gonna miss out on stories that are otherwise interesting and should be written.
Baseball wise, what do you think the average person doesn't, again, kind of same question, fully understand about, how good these guys really are?
Yeah, I think the average person probably doesn't understand like how much work goes into it. If it's a 7 o'clock, like they play baseball for a living, so no one's gonna begrudge them like, oh, you're working so hard. Like that's not a thing. But they really are. They really are working that hard, almost to a man. Like when you complain about someone being lazy, well, 99% chance they're not being lazy. They were probably there at 1, watching film, taking early swings, doing treatment, whatever. They're probably working through some injury that they have to get in the cold tub after the game on. So there's like fans tune in at 6:55 at night and turn off the TV at 10 when the game's over. And if they won or if they lost, that's what they see. But there's so much more that goes behind that. And they also, like, this is a bold concept here, but they're also people. They go through like the ups and downs of daily life, just like we do. And like, if they're going through whatever off field, that doesn't seep its way into how they that doesn't seep its way into what you know about how they're playing, but it might seep its way into how they're playing. And so I think that's just an important number before you say, oh, this guy's a bum or this guy's lazy or whatever. Like, you can still do that as part of the fan experience, I think. But they are human beings.
Yeah. What would be a surprise to us average people, as far as guys that you've met in the majors that maybe were better to write about than you thought they would be coming in, or somebody who you might know their kind of public persona is maybe not the same as what it really is?
Yeah, so I'll go. I guess this goes basically just off my last answer. But when the Padres signed Manny Machado, I didn't know what to think. And I think Manny has a reputation kind of around the league for lack of hustle or whatever. And having watched him, I don't buy it. And I guess my biggest takeaway from like now 3 years of covering him is that like he has a hard time dealing with the media, and he says some of the wrong things, and I don't think he has a very good grasp of like what he's supposed to be saying, or like how to like he shouldn't have made that Johnny Hustle comment he made in 2018. But that aside, like I think that gets him into a lot of trouble. That aside, like he busts his butt. He is as hard a worker as anyone, and I mean, I think there's maybe times where he's not running hard out of every single ground ball, and it's almost always because he's dealing with something that we don't see off the stage. He's almost always dealing with an injury. Like he's had a little bit of a shoulder thing now. And yeah, so I've covered him, and he plays 162 games somewhat regularly, and that's pretty rare in today's game. And so I just think that he can be tough to cover because he's a little combative with the media, and I think maybe I understand that because of the way the media's burned him in the past a little bit. But I've enjoyed watching him play, and I've enjoyed covering him, and I think his reputation nationally doesn't necessarily match what I've come to realize from covering him.
On the other side of it, who maybe not your current team, but if you look at the other teams or guys you've met through baseball, really really are what they seem to be, really, or just that much fun to cover.
Yeah, well, Fernando Tatis Jr. is that much fun to cover. I mean, he's as fun a baseball player as I've ever seen. He plays baseball kind of the way that you play stickball or wiffle ball as a kid. But I would say that covering the Padres, one of the they're not always the most forthcoming with information and with injuries, and so Jace Tingler's an outstanding manager and a really, really good dude, but he is hard to cover because there's not always that level of kind of, I don't want to say honesty because I don't think he outright lies, but there's always withholding information. Almost even in the 10 years that I've been working for MLB.com, it's evolved toward a football mindset, a Belichickian, we're not telling you this. We have information we're not telling you, and we're letting you know it. And so I think it was probably the natural evolution of things. And the Padres front office is the same way. And a lot of people I really like, a lot of people who are really good people who are not very forthcoming. And I guess that's natural evolution of it, but it's also interesting that that in the 10 years since I've started covering baseball, it's just changed so much. When I started 10 years ago, Don Mattingly was the manager of the Dodgers. And so having grown up a Yankee fan, that was really cool for me. I was an intern covering Don Mattingly.
Right.
And what I remember, he told us essentially what was going on, whether it was on the record during the manager interview or whether it was after it had ended. He'd clarify something. He'd be like, "Hey guys, just to let you know, he's going through a little bit of this." There's just not as much of that anymore.
Yeah, probably just a sign of changing game and like that, right? It's speaking of which, if Rob Manfred just decided to step down and suddenly AJ Cassavell was the commissioner, think about some of the things people have said about the game recently, that it's difficult to watch at times. It's, too analytics driven. And a lot of the kind of feel for baseball is maybe going away. Anything you would change if you could about the game to make it more user friendly?
Yeah. So I think Major League Baseball is trying a lot of the things that I would like to see implemented. I think you're not going to find many people who don't agree with we want to get back to a game where it's kind of more contact oriented and action oriented and less so strikeout heavy. I think I don't know exactly what the solution there is, but I think by testing in the minors, the ideas of banning the shift or moving the mound back or what impact will this have? I don't know what the exact answer is, but I know I'm willing to try that out. And so I don't know if banning the shift's the right answer.
You don't think it's sacrilege to try? Some people might be like, you're messing with the game too much.
No, not at all. And yeah, and I think no matter what you do, baseball is it's been around for so long, and there's so much history, and it's so important to so many people that no matter what you do, people are going to get mad at you for changing the game. The 3-batter minimum, I thought was a nice rule addition. Everyone said it would get rid of strategy, would get rid of lefty specialists. I hear that, I understand that. I think it's created a different kind of strategy, and it's maybe helped games flow a little bit better. But I think there's probably, I think there's a need to probably embrace, keep the game as it is, and then and just find a way to make it a little bit more contact oriented. And moving the mound back is one that I'm very, very intrigued by, because the studies that are done, if you move it back 6 inches or a foot, you're going to all of a sudden it's all of a sudden going to like encourage hitting. And I don't know if that's like, this is me talking. This is just me thinking out loud. I don't know if you can do that to pitchers though. I don't know if that's fair to them who have grown up their whole lives throwing from 60 feet, 6 inches. But so I guess like the changes I would make like right away would be a robot ump strike zone. I think we're there. And I think you like every single person at home on their TV knows instantly whether that umpire made a mistake or whether he got it right. And I don't know that it's necessarily even fair to the umpires. I think you still have them stand there, but if it's a strike, they get buzzed and they call a strike. And so that's one thing I would like to see implemented. I would also like, I'm a big fan of, I think the current playoff format with 2 wild cards playing each other to get into the, to get into the division series. I think it's really good. I think it creates some solid division races, but I would like to see that be 3 games as opposed to 1. I think we kind of got a little bit of a taste last year with the postseason that way.
I like the best out of 3. I didn't like the 8 teams making it though. I thought that was.
No, and I would never, if I were commissioner, I would that would not be a thing, because I think one of the coolest aspects of Major League Baseball is the strength of its regular season and the strength of its pennant races and like the excitement there. Like legitimately good teams are going to miss the postseason, which is something that I don't think basketball or hockey really has. And so if you're going to expand to 8, you're going to lose that. You're going to lose like the strength of these games.
And you're playing 162 games. That's a lot, right? You got to, you don't need everybody in the playoffs after that long of a season.
It's a lot of games for then. The only advantage you'd have gained would be you're the 2 seed and you get to host the 3-game series against the team that lost 20 more games than you did. So I'm pretty staunchly opposed to that, but I would like to see. I thought last year's that the 3-game wildcard series was really cool, and I think it does a better job of determining who has the better baseball team as opposed to just who has the best ace, which is cool. Like that 1-game playoff it's produced some really, really good baseball games, but I think playing 3 games where you got to run out 3 different pitchers and you got to maybe, if it's 3 games in 3 nights, there's a little bit of attrition. There's a little bit of like bullpen use maneuvering. So I think it does a bit like a 3-game series. It's only 2 more games, but I just think it does such a better job of determining who the better baseball team is. So I would like to see that maybe implemented there, and then kind of either stick with the current format or go to 6 at the most, but I wouldn't go any bigger than that.
Favorite visiting city or non-San Diego, and probably, to be fair, non-East Coast.
I was gonna say non-Philly in New York when I get to see my family.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair. Those are my 2 favorites because I get to see my family. Which is actually a big part of why I love the job, is that I get to travel and see them. So let's see. Favorite visiting city is probably, I really like Colorado. It's like sneaky good ballpark. I don't think it ever really gets mentioned as one of the best, and it's probably not one of like the top 5 or whatever, but it's definitely top 10. Sneaky good ballpark, great downtown area. Denver's a cool city. There's really things to do, and so you're making me yearn to get back on the road again, because I haven't been out there in, let's see, it's been my last road trip. Well, I guess I went to Los Angeles earlier this year, but my last road trip would have been September 2019. So.
But you said that's coming soon, supposedly, right?
Yeah, to Colorado actually will be my first trip.
But that back on the road in a couple end of next month.
Yeah, so I believe it's, I don't know the exact dates, but late June I'll be back on the road, and we're still covering games via Zoom, but we're hoping that like you get to start talking to players on the field as opposed to from a video camera.
Yeah, and that's why I said earlier was that that was always to me kind of my favorite, because it's really their natural. I mean, that's I always found them more relaxed when they're on the field.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, I guess really the one thing we haven't covered is the Cassavell Wiffle Ball tournament. Is that's still going on? Are you still the leading all-time champion, or are you?
I don't know if I'm the leading all-time champion. I think I probably am, but my brother might have something to say about that. But we've been doing it for shoot. Well, last year was the first year we've missed it in 23 years, and so it'll be back on again this summer. But it's really, I mean, it's not a Cassavell wiffle ball tournament as much as it is a Cassavell family reunion that has this big wiffle ball tournament now at the center of it all. So we've it's fun. It started out as 2 teams, and now it's grown to 4, and we pick different teams every year, and it's yeah, it's a blast, and it's like it's really like, because my family's like so important to me, and I live in San Diego, and I have some family out here in San Diego actually, but I don't get to see them all the time. Like, I don't get to see my family back east all the time, and so it's even during the middle of the summer, like, it's important to me that I take a weekend off and get to see them and get to see everyone and maybe beat them up in wiffle ball a little bit. Although I think I've gone 4 tournaments now without winning one, so I'm due this summer.
Sort of like your Yankees, right? It's been a long time since they've won.
Was it 09? Yeah.
Phillies won't be in the World Series to beat up on, I guess, for a while either, probably. So, and probably taking on some extra meaning, I guess, you know, that whole weekend being that you're on the road, right? And you're on the road so much, it's really your chance to kind of connect and see everybody.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's always meant a lot. And so, like, the family wiffle ball tournament emerged because my dad passed away when I was very little, and wiffle ball, baseball was just one of the things he loved. And so this tournament is kind of a way of like getting our family together to honor him. And it's like, it's really grown. I think like the first one might have been 97, 98, and now like we have like kids, like families with kids, and the kids have grown up and now they're dominating the wiffle ball game. And some of like, I feel like I might already be a little bit overmatched in it.
Getting old.
No, I'm not. I'm still up there. I'm still, there was a short porch in right field. One of the kids is a lefty, and he has a little bit of he's a little bit of an unfair advantage, but yeah, but no, we yeah, it's just so important to me to like to see all of, and it's such a cool way, because it's like it's once a summer, and I'm so busy during the summers, but it's a way for me to like, it's my mom's side of the family and my dad's side of the family, and we all get together, and like I haven't seen them, like this year I haven't seen them in a year and a half, but usually I haven't seen them since maybe Christmas, and we all get together, and it's just a blast from the start. There's no awkward introductions or like, hey, like, haven't seen you. Like, it's just it's just a party right from the get-go, and we're playing wiffle ball and we're drafting teams, and then usually the way it works is we play some wiffle ball games, and then the games end and we drink a few beers and talk about them and talk about what's going on with the Padres or the Yankees or the Phillies. And so it's just a great time.
Everybody wants to talk baseball with the MLB writer, I would imagine, right?
Which is fine with me. I'm always down to talk baseball. And it's the other aspect of it is like, I don't get to watch a ton of East Coast baseball, so I know everything that's going on with the Padres, but very little about what's going, like, my family is Yankees, Phillies, Red Sox, like all of them mixed together. And I don't know what's going on with the Yankees, Phillies, Red Sox like they do. Like, I know what's going on generally, but they're watching them every day. And so it's cool to kind of jump back into that.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the time, AJ. It's a long way from reading your favorite writers in Spanish class and torturing them because of bad basketball picks and things like that. So
you picked, we didn't get that in there. You picked against Hopewell in, what was it, 2005, and we in the dog pounds that started a nice pick Olshin chant. That was partially my doing. So
partially, like, totally your doing, I think, right?
Well, I know I started the chant. I believe one of my other friends came up with the idea for it. So
I think getting Hopewell to the Legion World Series was part of my penance for that.
There you go. We're even now.
AJ, it's a pleasure. Glad to see how great you're doing out in the West Coast. And again, there's got to be crazy to be writing about the Padres, not just the personalities, but the resurgence of baseball in San Diego. And, probably not just for this year, but they should be a good, exciting team for a long time. So congratulations to you. And hopefully we reconnect again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Mike.
Awesome. Thanks, AJ.